Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Mobile Cause webinar, 7 Dynamic Fundraising Event Ideas to Captivate Donors in 2021. With today's presentation, we hope to inspire you with fundraising event ideas that you can host in 2021, no matter what the future brings. These fundraising events put on by other nonprofits can work for in-person, virtual, or hybrid events, a little of both in-person and virtual. We will share how nonprofits planned and promoted their fundraising events, the outcome and results of the event, and how the organizations will approach them when life gets back to quote unquote normal. So we'll also share with you the tools that will help you host and promote your own fundraising events. This is going to be an exciting and fun discussion to help your 2021 planning. And before we get started, please know we do welcome your participation and are here to answer your questions. So be sure to submit your questions into the question box on your GoToWebinar control panel. We have fundraising experts behind the scenes to answer questions during the webinar and at the end when we will hold an open Q&A session with our presenters for any additional questions. We hope you get a lot out of today's presentation, and as a quick reminder, we will be sending out the recording and slides to all our registrants afterwards. All right, so today's webinar is presented by MobileCause. MobileCause understands the everyday challenges nonprofits face, constantly confronted with limited resources, yet still expected to expand your impact. You shouldn't have to face these challenges alone, and that's why MobileCause offers more than comprehensive fundraising software. We also provide one-on-one strategy from dedicated fundraising specialists and have the industry's best support team ready to provide assistance 24/7. At MobileCause, we're just as committed to your cause as you are, and together we can grow your nonprofit like never before. Now, let me introduce you to today's presenters. Meredith McGuffage is Team CCF Coordinator at Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. For almost 3 years, she has been helping raise funds for this very rare cancer through athletic events. Corey Blake is a digital fundraising strategist with MobileCause, where he works one-on-one with nonprofits to maximize their fundraising campaign success. He creates and sets up campaigns, provides fundraising and donor engagement strategies, and creates supportive communications and promotional tools. Corey's work has enabled hundreds of MobileCause customers to successfully accelerate and increase their fundraising and engagement efforts. And I'm Scott Couchman. I'm the training manager at MobileCause, where I work with our clients to learn and maximize the MobileCause fundraising and communication platform with live daily trainings. I also host monthly customer trainings to help nonprofits of all sizes across industries apply best practices and fundraising strategies to drive their success. All right, so our agenda today is full of fundraising event ideas, planning, and hosting strategies, insider insights, and useful takeaways for your upcoming events. First, we'll hear from Meredith McGuffage on a new event her organization held just a few weeks ago, a virtual turkey trot. This event was created specifically to overcome the issues surrounding an in-person event in the fall. The event turned out to be a great success and one they plan on continuing. Then we'll hear from Corey on other fundraising events nonprofits have hosted and how they had to be flexible in their event details. These event ideas were selected because they can work as in-person, virtual, or hybrid, so they can be as flexible as you need them to be. You'll also hear from me on tools to help make hosting and promoting a fundraising event more effective and efficient. All right, now before we begin discussing the 7 dynamic fundraising event ideas to captivate donors in 2021, we do have a quick poll question for everyone. And we'd like to know where you stand in your spring fundraising event planning. So occasionally it takes a bit to launch, so let me go ahead and start this. While it's launching here, I'll read it off for you. What are your spring fundraising event plans? First choice is you're planning to have an in-person event. Second one is you have a virtual event planned. You have a hybrid event planned. You're still deciding what to do, and you're waiting to see what the future holds. So go ahead and put those answers in. All right, getting some good response here. Let's see how we're going. I have to admit, what's funny is I'm watching the numbers coming in that the deciding what to do seems to be fluctuating on percentage. So that's in a way kind of funny on there. All right, looks like we are pretty full up here. So we'll go ahead and close out the poll. And let's take a look at those results. It's kind of interesting here. It looks like a lot of you are still in that deciding what to do stage. A lot of you have the virtual event plan. So, it's great to see where you are in your planning process, and it looks like most of you are going to benefit from the ideas, the strategies, and tools we'll be sharing with you today. And wherever you land on this poll, you know what? Good news. Our webinar today is going to have some useful information for you to start applying to your fundraising events right away. So let's dive in. Let me hide the results here. And join me in welcoming Meredith McGuffage to start us off by sharing her virtual Turkey Trot event. Let me give the control here. All right, over to you, Meredith.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. My name is Meredith McGuffage. I'm the Team CCF Coordinator for the Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation. For those of you who may not know, cholangiocarcinoma is bile duct cancer, a very rare cancer affecting 8,000 individuals in the U.S. each year. So the mission of Cholangiocarcinoma Foundation is to find a cure for bile duct cancer and to improve the quality of life for those affected with the cancer. We have a staff of about 15 people, both part-time and full-time employees, focusing on patient advocacy, research, education, and of course, fundraising. I'm a part of the team, the development team that raises money through fitness. For the past 3 years, Team CCF has been involved in several marathons, including New York City, the Chicago Marathon, Boston Marathon, and the Philadelphia Marathon. Our team is also involved in 5Ks, half marathons, triathlons, and Ironmans. My first year with Team CCF, in 2017, we raised $30,000. In 2018, we raised $85,000, and in 2019, we raised $126,000. I was very excited for 2020. Things were positive, and our program was evolving. When COVID hit and all in-person events were canceled, our development team sat down to come up with ways to engage our cholangio community. We really wanted to keep our members engaged with us and each other. We knew how important it was to feel connected and that good health and mental fitness were key components to a person's well-being. In July, we launched Moving for the Cure. This was a week-long virtual event in which any person of any age or athletic ability could register. They could choose their own activity, whether it be dancing, running, swimming, biking, and perform it during the week of July 12th. All participants were asked to fundraise, and everyone received a shirt and bib. The response was overwhelming. We had 200 participants who raised about $48,000. We had 25 states within the U.S. participate, and 3 other countries, including Malaysia, Canada, and Australia. Everyone was creative with their activity. We saw half marathons, dance parties, potato sack races. One family even recreated the Michael Jackson Thriller video. Our top fundraiser raised about $6,000. After such a great response to Moving for the Cure, we decided to host a virtual Turkey Trot. With Giving Tuesday and end of the year fundraising in the works, we decided not to make fundraising mandatory. We focused on registration and giving participants a fun and engaging activity. With many being asked to stay at home for Thanksgiving, not traveling or congregating, we felt that hosting a fun, lighthearted turkey trot would be the best idea. The foundation had just partnered with MobileCause, and we were excited to put together the virtual event. The event provided 2 registration levels. The Acorn level included a long sleeve t-shirt, a bib and awareness wristbands, and a downloadable PDF Thanksgiving cookbook with favorite recipes of the staff. The Cornucopia level included everything the Acorn level had, plus a Team CCF neck gaiter. Each level had individual or family options. Shipping was free within the US. Fundraising was optional and participants were allowed to create teams or raise money on their own within MobileCause. Our goal was to raise $10,000. We promoted the event with one mass email from our database. Information was included in all of our monthly, weekly emails for about 3 months. Our main focus was through social media. We chose CCF Turkey Trot as our hashtag and posted every few days for about 2 months, and then every day for the last month before the event. About 1 month before the event was the last week of early registration, and we held an incentive week, which meant every day a different member of our staff would use Facebook Live to introduce themselves and their role at their foundation, and then they would choose a registered participant who would win Team CCF gear. It was a great way to promote the staff, the event, Team CCF itself, and to encourage people to register that week. About 3 weeks before the Turkey Trot, we held a pep rally. Our presenting sponsor was a guest speaker, and we had a patient speak. Our founder, Stacy Lindsay, speak. Stacy actually announced at the pep rally that if we received 100 photos or video submissions, then she would allow her kids to throw a whipped cream pie at her face. People loved it. We received over 300 submissions, and today in about 2 hours, Stacy is going to go live and get a pie to the face. We really were trying to encourage excitement, a sense of community, and fun, all done virtually. At the pep rally, we gave away prizes and announced the awards that would be given away at the end of the Turkey Trot. We would have an award for the highest fundraiser, highest individual fundraiser, and then it would be the highest team fundraiser, the best bib design, best costume, best cheer video, and the Turkey Trot MVP would be named. All photos that were submitted through our Dropbox were reviewed for these awards. Team CCF's virtual Turkey Trot was held the week of November 22nd. Family and friends picked a day to run, bike, or walk that week. And just like Moving for the Cure, the response was incredible. You know, at first we had a budget of maybe $1,000. We hoped for 30 to 50 people, and we were hoping to raise $10,000. In the end, we had 600 people register for the Turkey Trot. We had 40 states involved and raised over $50,000. Donations were still coming in this morning, and we have a few company matches. Although fundraising was not mandatory, 70% decided to fundraise. Our top fundraiser raised over $12,000 and has applied for a company match. I received many emails thanking us for hosting such an event. It gave families an opportunity to come together in a fun and meaningful way. It was also a great way to support the foundation that they love. The Turkey Trot was just a great success. I thought we would see many past or current Team CCF members. Instead, I saw a lot of families and friends wanting to do something for their loved ones or with their loved ones that were dealing with cancer. We tapped into a new audience and was able to give more insight into Team CCF and our foundation and what it has to offer for people. We also worked with an industry partner for the first time. This relationship will be one that will definitely grow in 2021. It looks like a few in-person events will start up again in 2021. We are already recruiting for the Chicago Marathon. However, I think these virtual events, the Turkey Trot and Moving for the Cure, allowed for a greater audience to participate, and we will be using them again next year. Thank you for your time, Scott.
All right, thank you, Meredith, for your insider look at creating a successful and fun fundraising event. I love the pie thing. So as a quick reminder, everyone, if you have any questions, you can submit them in the question box on your control panel as we go along. And now, let me change control here, and we will hear from Corey Blake on how other nonprofits have hosted dynamic fundraising events and how these ideas can be utilized in your own fundraising event calendar. And I'll share some of the tools these organizations used to manage their events. Corey.
Thank you so much, Scott. And thank you, Meredith. That was fantastic. You know, there's so much creativity and fun in that kind of an event, in that event specifically. And I think what we'll see in the next ones too is that same spirit of, you know, that when there's challenges, it really fosters a lot of creativity and a lot of imaginative thinking. And I think that's one of the key takeaways of building something that can be dynamic enough to kind of weather whatever the storm may be in 2021. So we want to look at it. We got 6 more organizations we just want to spotlight and show you what they did, and they're all really great. So I'm excited to share them with you. The first one up is the Mona Foundation, and so they have traditionally done a on-site gala, as a lot of nonprofits usually do, and like many, they faced the reality that they couldn't hold it, and so they had to look at what they could do, and so they hosted a virtual gala, and so they obviously had guests register ahead of time, and the benefit, as Meredith was mentioning, of going virtual is that you sort of break that geographic limitation. You know, you don't have to worry about people being local or having to fly in. You know, literally anybody can participate. And so they definitely saw that in their attendees that they really came from around the world. And they built a program that mixed live and pre-recorded. So they decided they wanted to keep the whole thing to about an hour, and they used a host and an MC for live segments to sort of queue up the pre-recorded segments, and also to do some live interaction. And I think he did an interview or two. And then they had the bulk of it was pre-recorded segments. And so what they did, how they structured it to keep it really dynamic, was they really reached out to different facets of their organization. So they had partner projects where they had 1-minute personal greetings from each project. Then they reached out to donors of various sizes over the last 20 years, you know, those donors that they have a relationship with, and they invited them to make a 30-second to a minute video of why do you support the Mona Foundation. And so they had various types of videos that they had put together, and they edited them all together, and the way that they interspersed them kept it varied. So they didn't just do all of those donor testimonials all at once. They sort of sprinkled them throughout, and those projects, personal greetings, they were positioned in places so that it kept your attention. It didn't sort of dull your attention by just being the same thing over and over again. They kind of sprinkle it all together so that you're engaged throughout, which was a smart way to really keep it interesting and entertaining. Another thing that really helped in their engagement was how they got attendees. So they recruited their board and their advisory members, their committee, to do something they called together tables. So these are essentially virtual tables, and they set them up basically as fundraisers. So similar to how Meredith had people as individual fundraisers, these people were fundraisers, but for the sake of filling these virtual tables. And so they all had goals, and they were all responsible for selling these seats, in quotes. Obviously, they weren't actual seats. There was no no limitation on how many seats. And so the one of the incentives that they had was that when you sold a seat, your attendees would get this Zoom background. So the whole event was held on Zoom, and so all the attendees could see each other in the screens there, and each person had a custom Zoom background for each table. And so this really created kind of a sense of community, so as you're in the Zoom meeting, they'd scroll through and look for each person and the background, like, oh, that's they're with me, they're my team, and so it really creates this community and really encourages that sort of bond of everybody coming together to work toward helping this organization. So they found through the registration and as well as through the individual fundraisers serving as these sort of table captains, they had 400 guests registered. They raised grand total over $425,000 from the whole event, as well as pre-registration and sponsorships. And just the peer-to-peer part with the tables there is over $177,000. And I think what was notable for them was that they didn't have these physical costs that happen in on-site events. So there was no venue to rent, there was no catering, they didn't have to pay for valet parking. All that stuff is gone, and there are obviously some costs in Zoom and things like that, but the trade-off is minimal. And so they really found that their net and their gross takeaway was significantly higher than their usual traditional on-site galas. And so Keith Garrick had this great observation. He really found how great this was as a community building moment, as well, of course, as a fundraising moment. But the fact that people from all over who traditionally aren't able to participate in their in-person events, now they were able to. So they've decided that whatever next year is going to look like, eventually there will probably be in-person events again, but they've decided that there will always be an online element of some kind. And that's, it's as that quote says, first time donors from around the world were able to be in the room with us. And that's a big deal. That really helps to give donors that feeling that they're part of your organization. And that's huge.
All right, so registration. You can request guests to purchase a ticket or register for your virtual event. As Corey showed off, you had people register for that. You do have this opportunity to create a paid ticketing or registration, or leave the event free for anyone to attend. Paid tickets boost fundraising and have some exclusivity to it for those who are purchasing, while free tickets will really help attract the registrants and who is attending, even if the event is free. Now, sometimes if guests are attending for free, they may be motivated to give or give more later, so that's also something to consider. Now, if you're having a free registration form, it's helpful to really collect this guest's information so that you know who's attending, how many people you can expect, and have that contact information to keep in touch with them, leading up to and into other events, and keep them excited about this event. You can consider offering free swag with your tickets and registration. Maybe that's free merchandise from your organization, or a goodie bag or a swag bag of some kind. You can include sponsor products in the actual bags and help give them a little promotion. And if you do decide to have free registration for your event, be sure to add the option for people to make an optional donation too. The one on the screen here, Genesis Community Health, their event was free, but they offered an option for people to give while registering. And with that, they ended up raising a large chunk of their funds with this method. And lastly, automate your receipts to include important virtual event details so that your attendees are really clear on how they can tune in. Corey, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. What I said to myself was that the next organization we want to look at is continuing the mission. And so they are a smaller and newer nonprofit, as you can see, established 2016. And so, you know, obviously we'd all love to raise $1 million every event, but the reality is that if you're a new organization and a smaller organization, that's not necessarily realistic the first time out, and it'll take a little bit to build to that. And Susie Lutz, the executive director, very smart, she realized that, knew that, and decided that she wanted to hold a campaign to build awareness and to also broaden their donor base. And that's how you lay the foundation to build to as big as you want it to be. So she created this campaign here for that exact reason. And so what they did was they created this landing page here. Obviously, you can RSVP and you can still donate. So needless to say, while it isn't necessarily a fundraising objective, that was that they gave that option. So just as Scott was saying, when you register, you can donate. Even in this type of an event, if you land here and you learn about this, you can still donate. And they raised $7,000. One of the things too that they did was obviously they heavily promoted through email, social media. They made phone calls as well. And when they reached out to sponsors and they showed them their landing page and they said, this is what we're doing. We'd love for you to get involved. And their sponsorship increased significantly. And there, as you can see, this one really stepped up, Tito's Handmade Vodka there. And, you know, they basically said, this is the most professional platform we've seen, and we want to give you more. And so they really saw their sponsorship levels significantly increase. And for next year, they're going to more aggressively pursue that as an option. You know, that corporate sponsorship, they really see that as something that sort of was untapped for them, and that they want to expand further. And of course, as they go now, they can continue these awareness building campaigns, but they can also, of course, then from the information that they collect, bring those people into actual fundraising events and campaigns.
All right, so as Corey showed, just because your event is virtual, it doesn't mean you shouldn't accept sponsorships. However, you may need to think about some creative ways that you can recognize your sponsors. So be sure to promote your sponsors on all of the event materials that you're sharing out. That means including their logos and links to the websites or emails. Post that on your webpage and any specific event pages you may be building. And you may even consider giving them a special shout out on social media leading up to the event and in the event. And be sure to actually shout out sponsors during your virtual events. Now, I've seen a handful of organizations create a short slideshow to present ahead of going live in a live stream. And if their attendees were to join early for any reason, and the slides would show these highlighted these different sponsors and sponsor levels. So something to consider, but also make sure you want to verbally recognize your sponsors for their support with your event as well.
Next one we want to look at here is the Birch Family Services. And so they did a really cool campaign, a really big campaign, where they held for their 45th anniversary a campaign that went for 45 days. You'll see another organization we're going to talk about a little bit later too. They do that too, where they sort of tie in the year, you know, the number. They kind of use the numbers as a way to reinforce the significance. And so yeah, they've traditionally had an in-person event, a spring gala, and they converted it into this 45-day campaign that celebrated their 45th anniversary, and as it says, included a virtual 5K and a virtual gala. And so what they did is the campaign launched day one, halfway through was the 5K, and then that was a springboard to the grand conclusion, the grand finale, if you will, of the gala. And so they really had a lot of kind of plate spinning, but it all was tied together by the fact that they were celebrating their anniversary. They had a lot of social media and email content going out that was able to drive people to the right aspect that they wanted people to participate in. And so initially, if you want to attend the gala, you can participate in the 5K. And so they got people to register for the 5K, which sort of dovetailed into the gala. And so they would raise money as fundraisers in the 5K for the first half of the 45 days, and then head to the gala for the last half there. So this is the peer-to-peer part of it here, this crowdfunding page, this landing page. And so, yeah, like I said, they kind of really use this as a launch to their gala. They really wanted to help their fundraisers to reach their networks. That was big part of what they were doing, is to widen the net. As a big advantage of doing crowdfunding. And so they reached out to to schools, to families, donors, they had corporate partners, they had board members, trying to get as many different types of people involved in the campaign to participate, as well as the video content that they were pushing out, having that content reinforce those different types of people, so that the messaging matched the participants of the 5K. They helped their fundraisers craft messaging that could then be pushed out to their networks. So if I'm a participant, they basically handed me, say, here's an email you could send to your family and friends, and then I can just forward that on, or I can post a social media message. I can private message somebody on Facebook and invite them. I can text message them. I can, whatever method I can use to communicate to my networks and bring them in and get them involved as well. That really helped to widen the net here. The crowdfunding part of it here, their goal, they started it with $25,000, and it went far beyond what they expected. They increased their goal to $35,000, then they raised it again to $45,000, and then they finally were like, well, we'll just leave it at 45, but they ended up raising over $80,000, $83,000. So that leg of the campaign was far and away more than they were expecting. The whole campaign ended up raising over $366,000. They had 87 individual fundraisers. And what they found too is the engagement was higher than in the past. So this virtual, the interesting thing about switching to virtual, or including virtual, even if it is still a physical event, is because it's virtual, you're going to want to really try and overcome kind of that, that barrier. And so a lot of times that effort of trying to overcome it really unlocks some engagement that you may not have seen before. We see that with several of these, where the fundraising on the individual level is more than was in the past. So it's definitely, again, including virtual as an option really seems to unlock some enthusiasm in the community.
Now, the event page, we've referred to something called the event page and shown different examples of it on several of the slides here. And this is really just another great tool for a virtual event. We call it an event page. You may know it as a landing page. It's that page to bring all of these details for your event into one convenient place for your donors or supporters. An event page, it's essentially a micro website designed specifically for giving. This can share a wealth of data about your event, including the event details like date, time, how to tune in virtually. It can include links to all of your forms, whether that's a registration, a ticketing, or a donation form. You can also link your calls to actions like sponsorship levels and details, or potentially text to donate in different suggested donation levels. It can include a section to keep supporters updated on the progress toward your goals, and also just have the ability to link out to other important aspects of your event that you want to share to your supporters. Now, one of the most important things that you can use the event page for is to actually embed your pre-recorded video program or your live stream video right on the page, making things simple for your donors so that while they're watching the video, they can read more about your organization. They can donate easily with the click of a button. They can have text to donate information, kind of everything in one place while they're watching that video. So it really serves as a great donor experience. It's also great because you have one single link to promote to all of the aspects of your event. And this could be during all times of your event. So before your event, during, and after, you'll have that same link that people can continue visiting and become familiar with. Update the information on that one page to share with your donors throughout the life of your event. And lastly, you can continue to share your event after it airs. People visit the page even after it's streamed to see the replay, and they still have that opportunity to participate. So it gives the opportunity for even more people to continue joining in with your organization.
Next organization we want to look at is Soar. They held an awards gala, sort of a temporary replacement of their long-standing event. They actually hold two events, one in New York and one in Washington, D.C., and they made a virtual event for each of those, for those communities. And so they've actually been running those events for 34 years, every 34 year annually. And so this was a shift. When there's something kind of long standing, it sometimes is hard for the culture of the organization to shift and do something different. And so they really wanted to acknowledge that it was different. With the content, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. But as far as the promotion, they really went all out. As you can see, they really started early, and they included physical, even though they went virtual, they included physical invitations. So they did social media, they did email, but they also sent out save the date mailings. They sent out invitation cards with reply cards, and they started really early. Save the date went out 3 months prior. And then to sponsors, they sent out letters 2 months prior. So this kind of, like metered pacing is really good in helping foster this idea of, hey, this is a big deal. Even though it's going to be virtual, it's no less significant. It's no less special. And so they really wanted to make this feel like it matters still, and so they really engaged every communication channel they could to do that. And of course, they use texting as well. So these sort of join us reminders you can see there. So this is a great way to follow up. So you get something in the mail. Oh, that looks great. I should do that. You get an email. Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm definitely going to do that. And then you get the text. You're like, okay, I'm doing it. Click, and you tap the link. So all these different channels really prop each other up and build on each other. It's not just one. It's really using them all together. So with the content, they really wanted to keep it, brief, but not too brief. So they landed 40 minutes, and that's, earlier we started with the Mona Foundation. Theirs was about 60 minutes. This one is 40. That seems to be around the right time. I think generally, if you go beyond an hour, you start to challenge people's attention. 40 to 60 is a really good window to make it feel significant and that it's important, but you don't want to wear people out. They also, again, I was starting to say before, they wanted to acknowledge that this was not the in-person event and that it's a different format, it's a different experience. And so they altered their programming to really reflect that. And so they really focused on their mission and making their community the stars. Their community, they work with the religious community, and so their sisters, brothers, the priests, they wanted them to be the stars of this event, this show, and they were awarding them, and so they were the focus, as well as their mission, how these people fit with their mission. So they created these video segments to, again, diversify the content and keep the pace of the event moving. So their New York virtual event, their net was 40% higher. DC was the gross revenue was the same. The net profit was 25% higher. Again, the physical space is not a factor anymore. You don't have to rent space. You don't have to hire security. You know, whatever you normally do to secure that space and have people in a room together, you don't have to worry about that. And so that really changes the math on a lot of these things. So that's, I think, it for Soar.
All right, so with texting communication, don't neglect texting in your communication plan. You want to be in that sphere of influence where your supporters are actively communicating, and that may be texting. So add it to your plan. An example I often give is that if you have a very robust and exciting Twitter campaign or even like an email campaign planned out, but all your supporters are talking on Facebook, you're not reaching your audience. You need to be in Facebook, and you may need to be in texting for the same reasons. Engage your audience with invitations, telling your story. Provide links to stories and videos and other updates. Remind your supporters of your event, like your nonprofit here, clock's ticking. See you at 3 p.m. today for the event. Another great strategy to implement for your event is this idea of text to donate. Text to donate is a way to make giving easy for your donors so that they can give straight from their smartphones. You can create a branded event aligned keyword and a short code or a short phone number and promote your text to donate details widely across all of your channels. You can share this leading up to the event as well as during your event. From the example you've seen here on the right, the organization shared the keyword as an overlay on their video in the lower third. And that's a great way for people to really visually show how they can support your organization. Consider adding something like that to a video as well as promoting it ahead of your event. Additionally, during the event, you'll want to make verbal calls to action and ask everyone who's watching to take out their phones and text in. Text to donate is a great way for people to feel involved, have them come together, and especially have them feel engaged as part of something in the virtual event and allow them to take immediate action by participating in real time.
Next up, we have a Women's Cancer Resource Center. So they have had this swim a mile event that they've held for many years. And again, this is a familiar refrain by now. They've held it for 25 years. This actually was their 25th year, and they needed to make it virtual. And so they didn't want to lose the branding of that swim a mile. That their community recognized it and knew it, and they didn't want to just throw that away. And so they sort of did this little hyphen thing here to diversify the ways people can support the campaign. So swim a mile, move a mile. And again, it's been running since 1996. And this added the option to, hey, you can swim, but you can also walk, bike, jog, as long as you are in some way transporting yourself 1 mile somehow, however you do it, you're in, you're participating. And they let it, you can choose your own adventure. You can make up however you do that. And then they promoted, of course, on social media, email. They sent out invitations. They made phone calls. Again, some of these things, another organization I was talking about earlier, they did phone calls as well. Sometimes I think we kind of forget that, even though it's virtual, the physical mailing still went out. Phone calls can still be made. Social media, email, text. Again, all these channels should be working together. And so they held this again. It was sort of like they registered and you became a fundraiser and you could fundraise up to the day. Again, they used the number 25 as a recurrent theme here. So they actually lowered their registration fee from $35 to $25 to tie in to the 25th anniversary, but also to acknowledge that the economic reality for a lot of people in their communities. They wanted to sort of acknowledge that and so lower the threshold a little bit. But they also used that 25 for a number of challenges and aspects of the walk and swim, and however you're moving. And they had a contest again, so thinking about more ways to engage people. They had a t-shirt design contest. If you registered by a certain date, you could vote on the design that was the best. They had a PowerPoint presentation. You could also, I think, you could win a chance to get a swim class by an Olympic athlete. I mean, they had a lot of different kind of challenges and ways for people to get involved. And the one thing that they used as a way to encourage this involvement is this not donor, actually, just a virtual honor wall. And so basically they collected messages from people, and they created this wall here that you're saying. This GIF is basically a landing page, event page, and if you scroll down, you would see this scrolling virtual honor wall. And so again, they really worked on this community engagement, really looked at different ways to get people excited, to encourage people to move and to get their families together, to kind of engage in not only being physical together, being exercising, getting out there, even though everyone's locked down, you can still get out there and exercise, but also we're doing it for a good cause. And so they raised over $300,000. They had over 237 fundraisers, and their average donation was $93, which actually was higher than years past. So they really found that the people that they worked with were more engaged and raised more on average than in years past. And again, it's that community building. They did this online dance party. They did a drive-by celebration, basically, where they drove around and handed out swag. So they just really brainstormed and came up with a number of ways to really get people excited about participating.
All right, so we've shown several examples of this idea of the peer-to-peer fundraising, and you can use peer-to-peer in fun ways to engage supporters and boost your overall fundraising totals. Some ideas include a vote by donation for things like dancers, chefs, dogs, best pajamas, performances. You could have individuals sign up and encourage people to vote for them with peer-to-peer. A lot of organizations will do some type of Dancing with the Stars or live stream performances. We've seen talent shows, recipes, best pets, funniest pajamas, swims, runs, and a lot more. So think of creative ways that you may be able to incorporate that voting aspect and vote by donating. Now, another example is to encourage table hosts to fundraise and host watch parties like we saw with the Mona Foundation earlier. So during an in-person event, you may have had table hosts and table sponsors, and you can utilize any table hosts in your virtual events by encouraging those people to really serve as ambassadors for your organization, encouraging them to fundraise through peer-to-peer, as well as hold virtual watch parties to encourage more people to join into the event. Get board members and sponsors involved leading up to the event. If they're willing to go out there and share the event, have them sign up with a peer-to-peer page and encourage them to share out with their networks and get people involved as well. Provide talking points, materials, and be ready with challenges that you or they can promote through your event.
Okay, our last organization is Immaculate University. They were celebrating their 100th anniversary this year, 2020. It's funny, all these anniversaries, and they just happened to land on the worst year possible. But again, when there's diversity, you get creative, and that's what they did, and they overcame it, which is fantastic. So what they did basically is they took what would have been their gala weekend, and they converted it into this day of giving and included an auction component to it as well. So, and they moved the gala to next year. So they're kind of still having it, and they've converted. They basically created a new campaign for themselves, a new fundraising opportunity by converting this day to this day of giving, and then the gala will happen in 2021. So, so they really wanted an event that would connect their alumni, their friends, with this campaign. And so they, again, used this crowdfunding, this individual fundraiser opportunity, and they structured it by class year. So the first two are the decades, and then as they kind of got more current, they dug down into individual years, and each team, which was each class, had a goal. And they had a class agent who were essentially like the team captain. They basically served as kind of the point person, as well as the voice of their class. So they really leveraged individuals' voices as a way to create this enthusiasm. So, it's almost like it's essentially a testimonial, really, right? And so they're by having the class agent speak on their behalf, that really, because they're speaking from their individual perspective, that really can carry more weight and more heart to it than if the organization as an entity is speaking. So they really created these letters from these agents. They created emails, they made phone calls again, and sent that communication out. And donors, as a response, they could share on a memory wall as a way to kind of, have it be a conversation. So the result was they raised 6% over their goal, past the $250,000. They raised over $260,000. And they, again, this idea of using their voices, these are some of the quotes here, this virtual memory wall that they built. And so they took these statements from students and created this wall. And again, this carries such weight because it's like these are individuals sharing in their own words what the school means to them. And that's fantastic. That just helps others to really get engaged as well. They held it on their charter day, which is their actual anniversary. And that theme of 100 years of memories, again, really leaning into their anniversary and the significance of the history of their school and the connection to their students. They had the auction there, and they offered low-cost items so that they really wanted to make sure anybody at any level could participate. So they, of course, had your higher level auction items, but they had lower cost ones as well, so that wherever you land financially, that you could find something for you. So Jean was, again, echoing, there will definitely be a virtual component to events going forward. I think that's, has been for us as well, a big takeaway that, if tomorrow by a miracle, everything's fine and everything can go back to what it was, I think we have found some lessons that can make what it was even better, so that we can include these virtual aspects to in-person events as a way to enhance them.
Now, one of the cool things that we've seen this year with online auctions is that they don't have to be limited to that time frame of the event. So launch them before the event starts and potentially keep that auction open for longer after the event, which could help drive more exposure to the different items available, provide more bidding, and ultimately increase more participants as well. You use an online auction software for bidding and send notices when the supporters are outbid. Just make sure on your time frame, just make sure to announce the start and end times clearly across all of your communication channels so people know exactly when and how to tune in, and make sure that the links are shared so that people can start making their bids. Now, 2020 has been interesting, challenging, different, all of the above. Nonprofits have had to think differently and creatively this year. And how can technology help with their fundraising? The world doesn't stop. What many organizations have found is that the technology needed to help fundraise this year is much more than a temporary fix. It allows them to broaden their overall reach. And virtually every single one we've talked to has stated that they will incorporate the virtual aspects of their fundraising, even when they can bring back in the in-person events. So even as challenging as this year has been, it has also opened eyes to the potential of reaching more people, people who would never attend an in-person event, because of this technology that can provide innovative ideas to fundraise and can stand alone with virtual events and continue to be valuable for in-person events as well. Now, we hope you found today's information helpful as you look ahead to planning dynamic fundraising events in 2021. So before we go ahead and jump into our Q&A, let's ask just a quick question here. Are you interested in learning more? So let me go ahead and launch the poll, and our choices are: were you interested in learning more about virtual events with MobileCause? Are you interested in a one-on-one consultation with MobileCause? Or would you like more information on the MobileCause software? So the poll should be launching here. All right, looks like it's live. Let's see what we get. All right, looks like the numbers are slowing down. We'll give it another couple of seconds here. All right, so with that, let's jump into our live Q&A where we'll answer some very important questions you've sent us about fundraising events. So please feel free to submit any others as we go along. Okay, so first question here is for Meredith. What did you do for the virtual kickoff event?
If that's the pep rally, for the pep rally, we had our founder speak, and she welcomed everybody. We had our presenting sponsor, which was QED. They spoke, and then we also had a patient speak, and he talked about how he was raising money and how the foundation helped him through his diagnosis. And then we gave away raffles and prizes to everyone. I also tried to do a questionnaire, and it didn't work out very well, but we'll do a better job next time. But it was a fun event.
Okay, great. Next one here is for Corey from Jim. Should we be adjusting our sponsorship levels when moving from in-person events to a virtual platform?
I just had an organization actually just switch and update their sponsorship form, and they actually didn't change the pricing. They just changed what came with the sponsorship package. So you certainly can, whatever you feel comfortable with, but I don't necessarily think you need to jump to that conclusion. I think if you some of the creative things that we found where you can integrate sponsors in, Meredith just said that there was one great opportunity. You have them speak or have them featured in a video on that landing page, that event page. You can display sponsorship logos. I've seen people embed an ad journal into that landing page, and that's like a document, effectively like a PDF you can kind of flip through. There's like a little PDF reader you can embed onto those pages, and that can have the sponsors in there. Some organizations will send like food boxes to people, and they'll feature the sponsors in those boxes. So there's a lot of ways you can still find ways to feature them and keep them included while maintaining the prices that you originally had. So I wouldn't assume you have to lower it.
Okay, great. So next question also on sponsors. This one is for Meredith from Bridget. I'd like to know how you were able to obtain new sponsors, if any, and if not, how did you get the sponsors to do a match?
Well, we have not reached out to a lot of our industry sponsors in the past. This was untapped, and we just presented. I think what helped was Moving for the Cure, that we did very well with that event. raised a lot of money and connected with a lot of different people. So we had people who were interested in sponsoring our next event. So we didn't have a lot of sponsors, but we had maybe 3, which was amazing. They were amazing. So we hope to grow this each year, and just to show now that we did a great job with the turkey trot, moving for the cure, and hopefully grow it from there. And now I forget the second question.
How did you get the sponsors to do a match?
We reached out to the peer-to-peer fundraisers. We reached out to them and said, you may want to ask your company if they do a company match, tell them what you're doing, what you're fundraising for, and see if they will match. And actually, several companies said, yes, we do this. It was fairly easy. It was just asking.
Okay, great. Okay, so looking at our time, we got one more question here. This was for Corey. We did not change a fee to attend our virtual, or we did not charge a fee to attend our virtual event. If we are in person next year, what part of the program will you keep virtual so that the in-person audience feels like it's worth attending in person and paying a ticket fee?
Well, the virtual, you'll want to select what portions of the event will be virtual and available. And so if I'm attending in person, I get the whole thing. I get the food, I get the, I get the whole experience. If it's virtual, I may not see the whole show. You may want to choose different segments, and I certainly don't get the food and things like that. So there's a cost, there's a value in just the experience.
All right, well, thank you. So we've now come to the conclusion of our Q&A, and before we leave, if you're interested in discovering how MobileCause can help maximize your fundraising efforts, please fill out our post-webinar survey. Thank you again for attending today, and best of luck to you in your 2021 fundraising events. Goodbye, everyone.